Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Hi and welcome to episode 64 of the UK Travel Planning Podcast. In this week's episode, I'm joined by guest Andy Ward, the founder and owner of private tour company Expedition Yorkshire. Andy talks about the various tours he offers across Yorkshire and beyond, plus the benefits of taking a private driver guided tour. So if you're considering a visit to the beautiful English county of Yorkshire, this is the perfect episode for you. I began by asking Andy to introduce himself and share a little of his background and motivation for starting Expedition Yorkshire. Hi Andy, it's lovely to have you on the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and why you started Expedition Yorkshire?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Tracy, for having me on this podcast. So I actually worked in literally, maybe not every tour format there is, but many different tour formats. I've worked with a company that flew hot air balloons over Europe with guests on board, and then I would do the ground-based tours. I've worked with a company that did tours in minis in London, in classic 1960s minis. And I've worked with a company that did long-distance tours in buses where I was giving the tour and I was driving the bus all at the same time. And I did all of these different tour formats over about a decade. And everything was going swimmingly well. Probably, truth be told, between you and I, getting a little bit cocky. And then the pandemic. And like lots of people, pandemic had lots of effects. And I never want to sound light about this because I know so many people suffered so badly. But like a lot of people, it also made you think about what you were going to do next. And in my case, I and my wife, Jo, who is American, which has a big, the reason why I mention it, because it has a sort of big impact on things. And our little boy, we decided to move up to the north of England to start again, or at least to move up here because we love it up here, and to start a tour company. Because this time I wanted my own company doing my own thing with my own format, own way of doing things. So we came up here and I started Expedition Yorkshire. And it's small, high quality private tours. You get me for the day, which you might consider a good thing. And you get the Mercedes-Benz V-Class, which is always a good thing. It's extremely comfortable. And I show you the best bits of Yorkshire, the best bits of the north of England, and going on up into Scotland as well, depending, of course, which tour you select.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, because obviously, I mean, you've said that you moved up to Yorkshire. So I can hear from your accent, being a northern girl, that you aren't originally northern. So would you like to, so were you originally from London, Andy?
So actually, very originally, I'm here from Glasgow, but you wouldn't necessarily guess it, because that's where I was born. You couldn't see that coming, did you know?
I did not.
But very originally, very originally. But I left there when I was 3 years old. Not on my own, it was with my parents. Oh,
that's a good job.
My wanderlust is big, but it wasn't that big. So, most of my life I've spent in London. And perhaps, maybe when I first came up here, I felt, just between you, me, and all the listeners, a horrible fraud. Because I'm not a Yorkshireman. I'm absolutely not a Yorkshireman. But I did do my first degree up in Yorkshire. And my wife, Jo, and I had taken many holidays up here because Yorkshire is amazing. And Jo absolutely loved it. And when I came up here, I committed to know as much as possible. And they do say that, converts are the most extreme, aren't they?
Absolutely. And yes, and of course because you run your business in Yorkshire, finding out everything about Yorkshire and sharing your love for the county is perfect when you do your tours, isn't it? Great way to do it. Great way to get that, share that love.
1,000%. 1,000%.
So would you like to talk about some of the tours that you offer? Because I know that you've got some fantastic tours including an All Creatures Great and Small one, which I'm excited to be going on near Christmas, which will be excellent. And I know a lot of our American listeners in particular absolutely love All Creatures Great and Small, so they'll be very excited to hear about that. Talk us through some of the most popular tours that you offer, Andy.
Yeah, so we offer 3 off-the-shelf tours, 3 tours that have already been tested and different bits added and taken away to give you, the very, very best day possible. And the 3 tours that we currently offer are the Moor Coast and Cliff Tour, which goes out to Whitby and the North Sea coast. We also offer the Fell Valley and Castle Tour, which goes to the Yorkshire Dales National Park. And we also offer a transfer tour. This is a tour that goes only in one direction. You don't come back from it, which sounds very ominous, I know, but it's perfectly harmless because we go from York through to Edinburgh. So at the end of the day, you find yourself in Edinburgh and you've seen all the incredible sights and landscapes between York and Edinburgh, which are many and numerous.
Ah, yes, and you go through Northumberland, which of course is my home county, so that's lovely to hear.
We do indeed, and Northumberland is a hidden gift to the world. It's England's hidden secret.
It certainly is. We need to not tell too many people about it, Andy. That's a very popular tour. I know, that's a very popular tour. You've said that, taking people up from York to Edinburgh.
It's, at the moment, almost our most popular tour, although the All Creatures Great and Small tour is coming up on the inside. So, it's really popular, the York-Edinburgh tour. And you never know precisely why something is loved or is really popular, but I think I can take a guess, which is people often say to me, but Andrew, there's a train that goes between York and Edinburgh. And that is absolutely correct. And it's a very fast train. It's a very good train. I love trains. And my son, Max, 5, loves them even more than I do. But the issue is that it's so fast that you don't see much. And also, if you're coming from your hotel, you got to get your bags packed and get out the hotel and then get a taxi and then get on the train, then go on the train, then do the reverse when you get up to Edinburgh or vice versa. And what that means is that one day of your holiday more really felt like transport, didn't really feel like a holiday. And when every day, every hour, every minute, and every second of your beautiful holiday, or many of you call it vacation, counts, that's not a good thing. And that's where Expedition Yorkshire comes in. We pick you up from your hotel in the morning. I load your cases on board. You sit on board. We talk about some of the stuff that you love and kind of what interests you and all the rest of it. And then we make our way north or south, depending which direction the tour is flowing in. And you see lots of amazing things today. You don't just see them, you experience them because we're in these, vast and amazing landscapes. And at the end of the day, you're at your destination. You just step out and you're there. We eliminate the hassle.
Well, that sounds perfect. And I know lots of people would be very interested in that, Andy, because as I say, it's a perfect way to do the transfer, but also to see parts of the country as well as you travel. So perfect. Absolutely brilliant. Can I ask you to talk through one of your tours in Yorkshire? How would a day pan out for somebody who booked a tour with you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. The tour that I'm going to pick for this question actually is the All Creatures Great and Small tour, because we get so many inquiries now about it, and we're doing quite a few of them. For those who don't know, All Creatures Great and Small was a book written by a man who was known by his nomenclature. Am I pronouncing that correctly? His written name, his pen name.
Yeah. Nom de plume.
Nom de plume. That's the one. Nom de plume.
That's it. Which
was James Herriot, and James Herriot actually originates from Glasgow. I think that's where our similarities stop, so I'm not going to ham that up too much. But James Herriot comes down to the Yorkshire Dales and he works for a vet for the bigger part of his life. And he writes lots of stories, not just about the animals, that they're of course fascinating, but also the people that he met along the way as a vet and the extraordinary circumstances he often found himself in. And there was a big TV series that came out on ABC, I think in America, or PBS, It's beautifully shot. I think the first of the new series came out in 2020. It's really stunning. If you haven't seen it yet, it's incredible. Nicholas Ralph is wonderfully cast as James Herriot, and it's really a gem of a show. And what we do is we drive up through the Yorkshire Dales National Park, pointing out some of the locations, some of the best and most important locations used in the show. Now, the chances are that if you book this tour, you might be really into your show, but your partner, your husband, your wife, your brother, sister, friends, they might never have seen the show. They might not actually be that into the show. It doesn't matter, because we go into the world that James Herriot knew, which is the Yorkshire Dales National Park, which is absolutely stunning. I mean, of course I'm biased, but it is very, very beautiful. Lonely Planet called it, I think, Europe's #1 national park a few years ago. It's really a very, very special place. And we spend the day exploring the Yorkshire Dales National Park and talking a bit about James Herriot and pointing out a few other things as well, so that everybody on that tour amongst your group is going to be happy, no matter whether they're all creatures great and small aficionados, or they're not that familiar or couldn't care that much, whatever it is. You will all be treated with great respect, love and honour.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful. And is that, so you pick people up from their accommodation, and then is that, what sort of time scales are we talking here, Andy?
Yeah, so I generally pick people up around 9 a.m. If they wish to adjust that time within reason, they're most welcome. And then we generally go through to about 1 o'clock or so, lunchtime. And we're normally back anywhere between about 6 to 7 o'clock. I never watch the clock. It often depends on how the depth of interest that people have. You know, some people want something in headlines, quick move on. You know, other people want to spend, 20 minutes, half an hour in one key location. That's absolutely fine. Obviously, we're back a bit later, so I never say exactly when we're back, but in the earlier parts of the evening. So you're free to do other things in the evening if you want. Okay,
that's great. And also, that's the beauty, isn't it, of having your own private tour, is that you have that flexibility. And I've talked quite often about, because we know it's a little bit more expensive if you're going to book a private tour for yourself, but it comes with huge, huge advantages. And if you're planning a vacation, travel around the UK, and you can, I would highly recommend that you look at doing a private tour. So the advantages, obviously, Andy, is that you do the driving.
Absolutely. I do the driving. The advantages really are, and thank you for stating that, are numerous. I do the driving. A lot of the areas we visit, the driving is very complicated because the roads are extremely narrow and steep. Then the other thing is, you might have that advantage on a public tour as well, but where the advantages really stack up, you have to think when you're booking a tour or booking your activities on any holiday you're planning, that just being there, just waking up and having your breakfast is extremely expensive. Once you divide the flight, and the hotel between the number of days you have, that gives you your base cost of a day. So if you have a tour where you have to share it with 52 other people, you don't really like half those people, and maybe you like them, maybe they're great, but you got to follow their shtick and what have you. Maybe it's a tour you don't like, then that is a whole wasted day of your holiday. At Expedition Yorkshire, we treat the fact that you've chosen to come to the UK with unbelievable respect and love. And, that's a huge thing that you're doing. And I always try and work as hard as I can to give you the very, very best tour possible. And it's just you and your friends on board, or your family. And that in itself is special.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you in a bit about how people can book with you. But I know you mentioned earlier that you've got some new tours coming out in the new year. So I think it would be useful to actually share some of those, because I think you're doing a bit more of the kind of York, Edinburgh type of transfer, which I think listeners will be very interested to hear about.
Absolutely. So in the new year, we'll almost certainly be offering a southbound transfer. So that will take you York to London via, it doesn't have to be via this, and we're not absolutely fixed yet, but probably via Chatsworth, because that's a stately home that many, many want to see. For those of you who are not really into stately homes, a bit more action, we can do a southbound via Silverstone and the British Motorsport Museum, if that's your thing. So we'll really be mixing it up in the new year. We'll be offering tours that just aren't offered at the moment, really.
That's great.
And there's a few other things. Keep tuned. There's some stuff that I'm not quite ready to talk about yet, but
okay,
which will be mega in the new year. Thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant! And you know what? You can come back on in the new year when you've got those kind of finalised, and we can do that. We can talk about that on the podcast, because that'd be brilliant. I mean, I'm very excited about the fact that you're going to be doing a York-London trip, because we are often asked about getting to Chatsworth, and it is difficult to get to Chatsworth. So if that, this is a brilliant way to do it, so that you can incorporate that trip down to York. From York to London, and also visit somewhere like Chatsworth if that's what you want to do, or Silverstone, or if you're interested in that as well. So there's some perfect opportunity. There's a great opportunity. I'm glad that you're actually offering that, Andy.
Thank you.
I can see a lot of interest in that. So I just wanted to ask as well. So if somebody wants to book with you, obviously I'm going to put a link in the show notes for this episode, which is episode 64, will be in the show notes on our website. So if anybody wants to book, they can go via that link. But obviously the other way is that they can go direct with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can book, direct off our website. Although, you might have questions, you might just want to chat to me to check that I am real. I am real. And, you can get in contact through the website. You can ring me up, you can email me, whatever you feel comfortable with. We pride ourselves on being an extremely personal company. You will never, ever, ever have with us a chat bot, okay? Or any of those automated, because I can't stand them, so I don't want my customers having to face up to that nonsense, okay? So, you can get in contact with me if there's something that you're concerned about or something special that you had in mind, then let me know. That's the other thing. If you've got imagination and a way you wish to use the Mercedes V-Class, and myself, which is legal, then please get in contact, because we can probably do it. We already do things like location scouting for films and that kind of thing. So,
that's really exciting. So how many people can you fit in your van? That's also worth knowing. What's the largest size group that you can take? Yeah,
so we're licensed by the very venerable and wonderful City of York Council. We're licensed by City of York Council to take up to 7 people.
Okay, that's perfect. And so obviously expeditionyorkshire.com is your URL.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, so people can pop over there and check it out. But as I say, I will put the link in the show notes as well, so people can pop over that way.
You can also follow us if you're quite shy and you just want to follow us. You can follow us on Expedition_Yorkshire or at Expedition_Yorkshire on Instagram.
Oh, perfect.
And you'll see some of the stuff that we do. We try and put photos up, when we're out and about.
Yeah, and I follow you, I have to say. Do check out what you've been doing, and it looks excellent. So I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to joining you in December. I'm going to end the podcast. I'm so happy that you came on to chat about Expedition Yorkshire. We're very careful about who we take on board as our preferred partners, and I know you're a perfect fit for us. So it's very exciting. But I want to ask the one tip that I ask everybody to share at the end of a podcast, which is the one tip that you would share with anybody visiting Yorkshire for the first time.
I don't think that you can come to Yorkshire without not visiting Castle Howard. At the very minimum, you need to find out that it's not actually a castle.
Okay.
But at the same time, it won't leave you disappointed. It's amazing.
Excellent. Should we leave listeners with that? And then I can share a little bit of information about Castle Howard in the show notes, but obviously on your tours incorporate Castle Howard?
Yeah, we can very much incorporate it, even if it's just, some people will ask us to actually stop and they want to look round, and that's fine. Or some people just want to drive by on the way to Whitby, and we can do that as well. But yeah, I try and incorporate on the tours where the geography makes sense. I try and incorporate Castle Howard.
Okay, that's brilliant. So thanks very much, Andy, for coming onto the podcast. And I'm sure we'll chat again in the new year when we find out about all your new tours and share those with listeners. But it's been great chatting with you today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Once again, thanks to Andy for coming onto the podcast. You can find details of the places and tours Andy mentioned, plus a link to the Expedition Yorkshire website in the episode show notes at uktravelplanning.com/episode 64. That just leaves me to say until next week, happy UK travel planning.